big question is AI ethical? My straight answer is no. I did a research study with NVIDIA. They have a AI system called Megatron, and they have one question to put into the system, which was, will AI ever be ethical? It was quite a harsh answer. What it basically said was that AI will never be ethical. The only people that are ethical are humans.
Hey James, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Thanks for your time.
Let me jump on to AI and ethics. You are an author of a book called AI Apocalypse, right? So you obviously have an interest in this area. How do you see AI and ethics, and how do you think they go together?
First off, I think the big question is AI ethical? And my straight answer is no. I did a research study with NVIDIA, which is one of the biggest companies in the world, I believe now, and they have a AI system called Megatron. Great name. And they had one question to put into the system, which was, will AI ever be ethical? It was quite a harsh answer. What it basically said was that AI will never be ethical. The only people that are ethical are humans. Humans are good and bad. The only way to get rid of AI and ethics is to get rid of AI completely. People are instinctively emotional, and the only way that AI is ethical is the information that we put into the system itself. So both of them are inseparable. You can't build AI without thinking about ethics because it doesn't invent itself. It reflects us as human beings. So the myth of AI being a neutral system is exactly that. It's just a myth. If you take training data, LinkedIn data, for example, and you feed a hiring algorithm with 10 years worth of CVs, and those CVs are more based on female-based CVs than male-based CVs, the predictor will come out with a more sexist-based answer. And that's the same for medical, that's the same for retail, that's the same for any other vertical that we're looking at, particularly within the medical industry. So for us, we have to understand that small human biases have a big issue on this systematic system. The ethics of foundation is that it's concrete under a skyscraper. You don't notice it when it's strong, but it cracks every time. And the reason it comes crashing down is because the person putting the information in is a very emotional person. We must remember that computers are rational. They take the information we get and they spit out millions of algorithms, millions of touch points. And those touch points are based on what we put into that system. In the last 2 years since COVID, there's been 2,500 different systems that have been implemented into MarTech. Those 2,500 systems are predominantly AI. Now, they're all different. They could be RPA, so robotic program automation, cognitive, and some, very few, are really deep learning based AI. And what we mean by deep learning is once it's up and running, it will run itself and it will become much, much better than a human. The majority of these are cognitive, and cognitive learns from humans. And what it effectively does is it learns our ethics, it learns our feelings, it learns how we do stuff, it learns how we do not do stuff, and it learns the good bits and the bad bits. And the upside is that it will find out over a period of time what the good bits are, and it would ask you, do you want to continue to do this? The downside is that it may continue to run on the bad stuff. And that's why we need to make sure that both AI and human beings are inseparable. I like to think of it as human-centric technology. If you asked me this question 8 years ago, it was very much about numbers and structure. If you ask me this question now, I want kids to have a job. So we need to retrain, reskill, uplift people to actually do stuff that adds value to the business, not taking AI to take away that value and not to do the stuff that doesn't add value to the business. And what I mean by that is making people understand how they can be better in that organization. Example of that would be better at strategy, better at commercial outputs, better at selling, better understanding how to develop those systems. All of the really good stuff that people want to do to join a business. The downside is we don't want people to get bogged down in the non-value add stuff. And the non-value add stuff is things like data entry, managing that data entry, which actually adds no value to the business because we have a system that can do it. But we must make sure that ethics is a key part of that. Another reason why AI is so important is so much of AI is at scale. As I said, we've now got 2,500 different systems in the MarTech industry. If one human makes a biased decision, it doesn't just affect one person. It can affect thousands, particularly if we look at medical industry, or other industries that are important to us from a personal perspective. But within business, I think there's two key points that we need to consider.
Yes. Mhm.
One is the skill set, and our skill set needs to be changed. We need to go from facilitating the actual technology that we're using, and in our case, it will be MarTech-based technology, to orchestrating and actually sitting on top of that technology and working across a multiple points of technology and actually orchestrating or telling those computers what to do rather than actually working within those computers. And I think that's a critical piece that's happening and gradually happening as we speak. A lot of people are still finding it difficult, and I think people find it difficult to skill up, particularly when you get to an older age. It's a slightly different. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, so to speak. But that's something that we have to do, and that's something that I did back in 2017. I made a conscious decision to jump into AI, look at what automation can do within the industry, but how it can hurt people from an ethical perspective and from a financial perspective, particularly within job roles. So we have to be clear on what we're trying to do. Are we trying to limit the amount of people in the business, or are we trying to upskill and make people add more value to the organization?
You made a great point there on AI and AI not having ethics. So to summarize, would it be fair to say AI has ethics, but that's the human ethics given by us, uh, from the training data, from how we structure the models. So the ethics kind of mirror the person who's giving the data to the AI.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, a computer is only as good as the person that's using it, and the information that we put into it. And that's the same with people looking for cancer cures or cures for dementia. It's the same thing. You still need that one person, those two people, those three people to analyze that data and make sure that data is true and trust. It has a single source of truth, and actually the output is not going to be biased by one person because they may have different views than others. It needs to be a very neutral based information discussion around what actually goes into that technology first to make it ethical and give out the right information for the right reasons. And that's where we're at. I think we're at a tipping point of where the industry is going, and a tipping point of where developers, designers, coders are actually trying to now develop a very neutral based system. But as I go back to my original point on my NVIDIA and Megatron position, AI will never be ethical.
That's a very interesting point of view. So let me bring the conversation to AI and marketing. But before I go there, let me ask you, because you have founded marketing startups, marketing and AI startups. You are a corporate leader, the group CEO of Mortar AI right now, another marketing technology company. So that's intersection between AI and marketing. And how do you see that working? So AI, marketing, performance. How do you see that intersection?
So there's two different parts to marketing that I believe that are integral: persuasion and manipulation. Persuasion is when you give people relevance. So it feels like, wow, that they give me the right information, the right searching, the right information from Telstra or Optus or Coca-Cola that's going to actually tell me that I'm not being pushed into a corner. So that's good because people actually know that they're being persuaded. So if you think about Netflix, for example, Netflix is about persuasion. So when they're pushing their TV shows that are relevant to the one you just watched, you know that actually it's not about a manipulation. It's about a persuasive based solution that's allowing them to keep you watching again and again and again and again. If you look at manipulation, we look at things like social media and the dark side of social media, where a system and lots of algorithms that sit behind that social media based system will continue to manipulate you to stay on that screen. And the longer you stay on that screen, the more money they make. The more money they make through advertising, the more they'll keep you on that screen. And they do that in a number of ways. One is you may have 100 likes on a post in one day, but you may only get 2 likes in another day. And you're going, well, how do I lose 98% of those likes in one day? Well, they do that because there's a algorithm, an AI based algorithm in the back of that system that's manipulating your thought process for them to actually push greater screen time to make sure that you're actually going to watch those adverts and they can make more money. On top of that, if you look at social media and the way that they manipulate the actual content that you actually want to watch. Now, you haven't actually asked for them to change that content. They've just done it through a manipulation-based solution. So you'll keep on watching. I mean, that's just two examples of persuasion and manipulation. And I think we need to be very, very clear that to get the consumer's trust within marketing, we need to make sure that we're not losing the trust of the consumer. And persuasion is a much bigger part of what we play rather than trying to manipulate someone into buying something or continue to watch a screen on social media.
We all have this experience, like we go to Amazon or we Google something, and then 30 minutes later, you browse your Facebook feed and you see ads for what you searched. And I think that comes in the persuasion one, and I think it becomes manipulation if as a user you can't opt out of it, in my opinion. I kind of use this, right? So if I want to travel somewhere, I go and Google and go to multiple sites and search for flights, and I know in the next few days I'm going to get the best deals out there in my Facebook feed, right? So it's basically making the algorithm works for us. But if you're not aware of these things, you might buy stuff that you actually don't need. So as you explained, an organization can have implement these AI solutions, and it can go into this. It can actually persuade users, or it can go past the line and manipulate consumers. So when you are developing this as a corporate leader or a CTO, what kind of guardrails you have to put in place?
We do go back to ethical. I know that we've talked a lot about ethical, but ethical actually streams all the way through these topics that we're probably going to talk about. I think first there's data governance. Be honest about what data you're using, so sure people can consent. Now that's a great thing now because we've got people in privacy, we've got GDPR, we have numerous other privacy-based solutions around the world, and that's been put in. Now, but that hasn't been pushed aggressively in some countries by the government. So my hope is that that will become the norm across most major marketing and media-based countries. I think secondly is explanation. So if an algorithm is making a recommendation, which we just talked about, the human should be able to explain why. So Netflix example again, the human knows that it's just watched that particular program, and there's 6 programs underneath that are relevant. Good. So there's obviously trust in that system. And there isn't going to be an outroar that they're actually trying to push you to watch more Netflix. The third piece, I think, is ethics by design. So don't build a system first and check ethics later. I think you need to design the system that allows you to have a human-centric based solution for both internal development from a B2B perspective and an external development for a B2C perspective. think about the solution, think about the morals, think about the issues that it may cause. Because if you then start to have to change that, firstly, there's a high cost. Secondly, there's lots of work to do. And thirdly, you'll have to then go and explain that to your clients on why the system is not an ethical based solution. And we've now very, very recently, obviously from a Mortar perspective, we are now pushing aggressively to be transparent on what platforms we're using. And that's become a big thing for us to open up the black box and allow people to understand exactly how we built the system, so they can then make a informed decision on what platforms they're using. And I think that's very critical now. Everything is about trust. Everything is about transparency.
As a corporate leader, I think one of the things that I'm sure that worry you is about these upcoming regulations, right? Now, AI is growing so fast, and lawmakers are trying to catch up to that. And that's true from the AI side of things, and also I think from the compliance, privacy side of things as well. What are some of the tactics that you use, or you would recommend using to corporate leaders to be ahead of the curve, ahead of the regulation?
Firstly, I think as we've done within Mortar AI, it's actually firstly it's understanding when those regulations are coming, working closely with both the media industry bodies, and also understanding from a government perspective how those regulations will affect the system, particularly from a data perspective. But regulations often do get a bad rap. You know, people see it as slowing innovation. If those regulations and those privacy structures are put in place, privacy and security structures are put in place at the very beginning, then regulations shouldn't impact the growth of an organization. What they should do is they should enhance that organization. And again, we come back to trust and transparency, making sure that people trust the system, making sure people know that it's not going to do something that they don't want it to do, which allows them to continue to use that system over a period of time. Competitors who cut corners may move faster at first because it's quicker to do. But when regulations catch up, they're forced to stop and rebuild. As you would know, coming from a tech and a development perspective, it impacts your work, it impacts your time, it impacts the people at work. You have an issue with redesign, UX and UI development. All of this devalues confidence, not just within the workforce, but within the business itself. So that's why I think compliance and regulations are essential upfront and don't drag the business down.
Well said. Yeah. So there's nothing worse than like changing the architecture of a existing system, and if you're not build it, as you said, like without the right foundation and doing some future proofing, the moment you change something, it introduces technical debt, and with the technical debt, it becomes much harder for the product to move forward. It gets slow, the quality suffers. So yeah, it's a very very good point. So I think developing on top of a well-known AI framework, or like what we use is something called the Safe AI framework, where you kind of consider all of these aspects. So you have your typical like agile or scrum software building tools, and then on top of that you have all of these compliance, privacy, transparency, all of that by design. And I think that's the only way forward to like develop software now. You are the group CEO of Mortar, and Mortar AI has teams across the world. And Mortar AI itself is now trying to expand to Singapore, USA, and multiple countries. So there's fast-paced growth, and also I know you are very considered about the team well-being and the culture. So how do you marry the two? Like it seems like it's two different things.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the culture. I think culture is the first casualty of speed. There's a need to grow very very quickly. There's a need to design, develop, commercialize products within our industry, and you can be first to market or you can be best to market. I've done both, and I've worked out that actually being best to market is a better solution than being first to market. One, because the system actually is a much more developed and refined based solution. But two, because people feel that there is a cultural influence that they put into that product. You haven't pushed them to do 18 hours a day. And actually, there is a want and desire to be part of the overall company because you have made it your best. For me, culture is rhythm. It's not posters on the wall. It's not rituals you keep. It's weekly check-ins, celebrating small wins, creating space for people to connect beyond tasks. One of the things that we do is that we let people have hours a week to go and do their own projects. And why is that important? Well, one, because one of those projects could be an amazing project that we could take to market. But two, it allows people to use their brain in different ways. It allows them to have an understanding of what other stuff they can do and what other skill sets they can develop. And those skill sets could be important for the business. And when you scale globally, culture is sort of the connective tissue. It's very difficult to push a culture across two different regions, but that's what you need to do. You need to make that, just because we've got different time zones and different markets, without culture, you just have fragments of different businesses. So I think culture is not soft stuff like people think. I think it's now become an integral part of the business, a central focus of the organization. And I think people, wellness, and culture are now a key asset to the organization that allows us to grow exponentially across different markets, but also making sure that we're talking about the same thing at the same time, about the same model, about the same well-being within that organization. And I think that now has become apparent since COVID.
As a co-founder and exec of Mortar AI, it's great to hear. That's where your head is at, because I think it's been many years of Mortar we're working on, and I think now everyone coming together and we are now accelerating towards rapid growth. So that's fantastic. So when it comes to all of this, like the culture, the employees, like mental health, well-being, can we use AI in any of those things?
Yes, I think the answer. So, firstly, the answer is yes. I think that leadership. We talk about leadership and well-being, and we'll come on to the how AI can benefit that. I think firstly, leadership sets a tone for well-being. It comes down from the top. From your point, from being a CTO, it's everything within your team is pushed down from you. So how you act and how you speak to those people and how you develop those skill sets and how you talk to those people and how you check in and how you make sure they're okay. I think it's a critical factor because once you become part of that culture, then that has a distinct positive benefit to the rest of the organization. I don't want to brag about 18 hours a day. As I said, the team will think that's standard. And why should you do 18 hours a day? But if the model is balanced, if you rest, if you encourage people to take time off, then the team feels the permission to do the same. And I think that's critical. What I believe though is the more time that we spend with people from a leadership perspective, from a well-being perspective, we understand exactly their wants and needs. It means that we get better work out of them. And we talked about value add work, which is building their skill set so they can develop something that could then benefit the business over time. And I think that's a critical point. Otherwise, it ends up killing the business. Um, and I think that well-being allows people to build resilience. And we'll talk about resilience in a minute when we get to mental health. But from an AI perspective, there's plenty of platforms out there. But taking away the non-value add based work, which we talked about, data entry, looking for data and doing data segmentation, but actually using a system allows those workers and those people within the organization to feel like they are adding value to the organization and feel like they're actually part of that business. And I think that's where well-being and culture start to combine within any business. And it means that everyone has a voice, everyone has something to say. And as I always say, all ideas are good ideas.
James, how do you think that we can use AI to make sure that we can keep the culture and employee well-being and mental health?
So AI already impacts mental health. We've known that particularly since COVID. But if I look at, I did within my book, I looked at the workload that we did 100 years ago, which was something like 2,000 to 3,000. Well, I think it was 3,000 hours a year. We're actually only doing 1,800 hours a year at the moment. But our mental health is so much worse. Physical health was the issue back in 1820, and if now we now at 2025, 200 years now gone, we now have a mental health issue rather than physical health. Social feeds optimized for engagement, and that often means outrage, comparison, or fear. Fuels anxiety, loneliness. We work from home, and a lot of people even get depression. For me, with mental health, it's about making people and help them flourish. Why do I want them to flourish? Well, I don't want to drain them. I want them to side question its essential point of reference. The goal for mental health is about making sure that we build resilience. So, and if I look at that from a very selfish and commercial point of view, um, we having mental health days off, can be straining on commercial business. It can be straining on the cash flow. The more people that take time off, the more issues that the business may face. The better the culture, the better the mental health solutions, the better the AI non-value add based systems that you can put in place to actually take away some of that workload, the more resilience you can build within the workforce. The more resilience you can build within that workforce, the more time that that person will want to spend at that business. It isn't so much about the money. It's more about actually being part of a team and actually wanting to get up in the morning and come to work rather than staying in bed and going, oh, I really don't want to get up this morning. So all of these are interlinked, all the way from ethics, all the way from leadership, all the way through to culture, wellness, mental health. If we look at what we're trying to do, we're trying to upskill people. We're trying to make sure that we can build resilience in those people so they can add more value to the organization, rather than just doing a mundane job and coming in and doing the same thing over and over again. We want people to be part of the business. We want people to feel that they are inclusive. And this is everyone, all the way through from someone who answers the phones to me as a CEO. I'm not always right, and I'm not the smartest person in the room. I want people who are smarter than me in the room to come up with amazing ideas and not feel that they are pushed into a corner because they may feel that there is a personal issue that may impact them down the line. That's sort of a critical piece for me, and one of the reasons why I wrote the book about mental health. But if I go back to all of this and try to sum it up, I think I called the book AI Apocalypse, or is it just another Monday? And I look back in history about all of the major inventions that we've done in the last 700 years. And what's apparent is us as humans have found a solution to get round the introduction of new technology, whether that's going back to the spinning jenny and the Luddites, whether that's looking at the Industrial Revolution, whether that's looking at the invention of electricity or the light bulb, whether that's looking at the invention of the computer or the mobile phone. We've all worked round in upskilling ourselves to make sure that we are still important within the roles. And the outcome of all of this is there won't be an AI revolution or apocalypse. It is just another Monday.
That's a really interesting point of view. The way I see it is, the AI is different from all the technologies that we have had so far, like starting from fire to the wheel and to the smartphone, internet, and everything, because it has its own agency. It can make decisions on its own, so that could be fundamentally different. But I guess only the time will tell, because there's a lot of hype around AI right now, and talking about AGI and super intelligence. And if we actually go there, I think then most of our roles will be irrelevant, because I think it will be the know like omniscience, omnipotent being. But I think there's a lot of hype around that as well. So I actually, while I believe that that will be the case in few decades, I hope what you're saying is right, and it's going to be another Monday, so we have a chance in this earth.
I hope it's right as well. But if we look at the Industrial Revolution, all that happened was that people came off the land. They didn't make as much food coming off the farms, and that most people worked in the factories. So we changed. We as individuals, we as humans, we as Homo sapiens, we changed our way of thinking because we had to. It was part of our necessity to live. And I think that will be the same with AI. This is nothing new. It's just the new shiny toy that everyone's playing with at the moment. And at some point, it won't be the new shiny toy. There'll be another new shiny toy.
So in the conversation so far, we kind of teased about Mortar AI, James. Would you like to talk about Mortar AI and its plans for the future?
So yeah, so Mortar AI came about not from me really, but it was a thought process that I had 18 years ago. Sorry, 8 years ago. And one of the things that I always wanted to do was to create a business that was 100% automated from start to finish. Now, that didn't mean that you didn't need humans and people to work within that organization. It meant that it was going to take away all of the, as I said, the non-value added work that people had to do. And it just so happens that Mortar AI, I was speaking to a few people, and particularly one of the founders, and it was halfway there already. So we already had data segmentation. We had a data spine that was that cleansed data in a way that no other CDP could. It matched data in a way that no other CDP could, and it worked with other platforms in the market on an ongoing basis. What we were missing was probably two things. One was taking that data and actually using that data from an econometric modeling point of view, and two, from a media perspective, taking all of that data and that information, that learnings, and using it in real time to actually build out relevant research, strategy, and media plans for clients. And that's something that I think has become apparent over the last 3 to 4 months, which we've done very, very well. Nilan, you've been part of that and front and center. So that's been a massive change in the organization. And I think, look, I'm not a founder of the organization exactly. I came in and I'm very rational about the technology. But what I am is I'm emotional about the customer. So for me, it's about three key things. One is that everyone wants to make money for their clients. Two, everyone wants to make money for their business. And three, people generally want to do less work. And I know that the last one sounds very nasty, but if we can do that as a business and we can make our platform very simple for people to understand, then it's a lot easier for us to go out in the market from a commercial perspective and get people interested in the product itself. So we've just launched in Singapore, and probably by the end of the year we'll launch in the US and then the UAE after that. So lots and lots of work we're doing, as well as your team, Nilan, around development, making sure we can scale, making sure that we can scale across different markets around the world, because obviously, particularly within Asia, that's not going to be the same. We need to do different languages, etc. But all of this has become possible because of your team's execution around development, UI development, UX development, and scope around the business. So really, I need to thank you for much of this work. My job has been made very, very easy because of your team. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Thanks for that compliment and also all of your insights today. It's been brilliant. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. And I look forward to doing this again.